What if I told you that one of the biggest stories in boxing right now isn't happening inside the ring at all? It's happening online, where rumors, old rivalries, and a shocking promise worth $50 million have suddenly pulled Floyd Mayweather, Rick Ross, and 50 Cent back into the same conversation. And trust me, nobody saw this coming. For weeks, social media has been flooded with claims about Floyd Mayweather's finances. Headlines, viral posts, and endless comment sections have all been asking the same question. Is the undefeated boxing legend facing money problems behind the scenes? Some people pointed to lawsuits, business disputes, and reports involving unpaid debts. Others insisted the rumors were exaggerated and that Mayweather remains one of the wealthiest and most connected figures in sports. But just when the debate seemed to be getting louder, Rick Ross stepped into the middle of it and completely changed the conversation. During a live stream, Ross was asked about the growing rumors surrounding Floyd's finances. Instead of avoiding the topic, he doubled down in a way that immediately grabbed attention. Ross made it clear that he doesn't believe Floyd is broke. Not even close. In fact, he went even further, suggesting that if Floyd ever needed access to serious money for a major opportunity, there are people in his circle ready to make it happen. Then came the moment that sent social media into overdrive. Ross openly talked about putting up $50 million and helping make a massive event happen if the opportunity was right. Within minutes, clips of his comments were spreading everywhere. Fans began debating whether it was a genuine show of loyalty, a business proposal, or a direct response to the non-stop rumors surrounding Mayweather. And if that wasn't enough, another familiar name quickly entered the conversation: 50 Cent. The longtime rival of both Floyd Mayweather and Rick Ross wasted no time adding fuel to the fire. His latest social media post reignited old tensions, reopened years of public feuds, and left fans wondering whether he was simply joking or hinting at something much bigger. Now the internet is divided. Is Rick Ross proving that Floyd Mayweather's influence is still untouchable? Is 50 Cent exposing something everyone else is missing? Or is this the beginning of another explosive chapter in one of the most fascinating celebrity rivalries we've seen in years? Because the deeper the story goes, the more complicated it becomes. To understand why Rick Ross's recent comments created such a massive reaction online, you have to look at the history connecting all three men involved. This isn't just a story about money. It's a story about loyalty, reputation, old friendships, business ambitions, and rivalries that have been making headlines for more than a decade. At the center of the discussion is Floyd Mayweather, one of the most successful athletes in boxing history. Throughout his career, Mayweather built a reputation that went far beyond his undefeated record. He transformed himself into a global brand. While many fighters focused on championships, Floyd focused on becoming an event. Every appearance, every press conference, every interview, and every fight became part of the larger Money Mayweather image that helped turn him into one of the highest-paid athletes the sport has ever seen. For years, Mayweather proudly embraced the nickname Money. He frequently showed luxury cars, private jets, expensive watches, designer clothing, and stacks of cash on social media. Supporters saw it as proof of his success. Critics argued that the constant displays of wealth invited extra scrutiny whenever questions about his finances appeared. Regardless of which side people were on, one thing was undeniable. Floyd Mayweather became one of the most recognizable names in sports and entertainment. Because of that reputation, any rumor involving his money instantly becomes a major story. Over the years, reports involving tax disputes, business disagreements, lawsuits, and financial claims have surfaced from time to time. Some stories gained traction for a few days before disappearing. Others stayed in the headlines much longer. Every time a new report emerged, social media would immediately begin debating whether the boxing icon was experiencing real financial trouble or simply dealing with the kinds of legal and business issues that often come with operating at such a high level. Recently, that conversation returned once again. A new wave of online speculation began circulating after several reports involving lawsuits, business matters, and financial claims started attracting attention. Almost immediately, social media users began connecting old headlines with new ones. Before long, people were making bold claims about Mayweather's financial situation, even though many of those claims were based on assumptions rather than verified facts. As the rumors grew, two familiar names became impossible to ignore: Rick Ross and 50 Cent. Rick Ross and Floyd Mayweather have maintained a relationship built on mutual respect for years. While they come from different industries, both men have built brands around success, wealth, business ventures, and larger-than-life public images. Ross has frequently spoken positively about Floyd's accomplishments, especially when discussing the discipline required to reach the top of professional boxing. Ross often points out that many people underestimate the amount of work it takes to become someone like Mayweather. According to him, the public sees a luxury lifestyle, but doesn't always see the sacrifices behind it. Years of training, endless preparation, physical punishment, and pressure are often forgotten whenever conversations focus solely on money. That's why Ross appeared frustrated by the latest rumors. During recent live streams, he repeatedly dismissed claims that Floyd was broke. Ross argued that people online often repeat headlines without understanding the full story. In his view, someone's net worth cannot be accurately measured through social media speculation. He also emphasized that successful individuals frequently become targets of rumors simply because their names generate attention. But while Ross was defending Floyd, another voice was approaching the situation very differently. That voice belonged to 50 Cent. Unlike Ross, 50 Cent has a long and complicated history with Mayweather. There was a time when the two appeared inseparable. They attended events together, publicly supported one another, and frequently spoke about their friendship. Fans viewed them as two powerful figures who shared similar attitudes toward business, success, and self-promotion. However, that friendship eventually collapsed. Over time, disagreements emerged. Public comments became increasingly hostile. Social media posts turned into headlines. Interviews generated more controversy. Before long, what had once been a close friendship transformed into one of the most talked-about celebrity feuds involving sports and hip-hop. The breakdown of their relationship fascinated fans because both men were known for speaking their minds publicly. Neither seemed interested in keeping disagreements private. As a result, their exchanges often became major entertainment stories on their own. Years later, that history still influences how people interpret every interaction involving the two. Whenever Floyd appears in the headlines, many fans automatically wonder whether 50 Cent will respond. More often than not, he does. This latest situation proved no different. As discussions about Floyd's finances spread across social media, 50 Cent posted a message that quickly went viral. Some people viewed it as a joke. Others interpreted it as trolling. Still others believe there might be a deeper meaning hidden beneath the humor. Regardless of the interpretation, the post immediately reignited public interest in the ongoing saga between the former friends. The timing was impossible to ignore. While Rick Ross was publicly defending Mayweather and dismissing rumors, 50 Cent was posting comments that many fans saw as adding fuel to the conversation. Suddenly, what began as a discussion about Floyd's finances evolved into a larger debate involving loyalty, credibility, and long-standing rivalries. The situation became even more interesting because Rick Ross and 50 Cent have their own history. For years, Ross and 50 engaged in one of hip-hop's most famous rivalries. Diss tracks, interviews, social media exchanges, and public insults kept their feud alive for a long time. Although the intensity of that rivalry has changed over the years, fans still remember the tension between them. As a result, people couldn't help noticing the symbolism of the current situation. On one side stood Rick Ross, defending Floyd Mayweather and rejecting the rumors surrounding him. On the other side stood 50 Cent, posting messages that many interpreted as mockery or skepticism. That contrast transformed an ordinary celebrity rumor into something much larger. What might have been a short-lived discussion suddenly became a battle of narratives. Supporters of Ross argued that Floyd's accomplishments and business connections speak for themselves. Supporters of 50 Cent pointed to public reports and ongoing controversies as reasons for asking difficult questions. Meanwhile, Floyd Mayweather remained at the center of the storm. Every new comment generated more reactions. Every reaction generated more headlines. Every headline created new debates. Before long, millions of people were discussing not only Floyd's finances, but also the complicated relationships connecting three of the most recognizable names in sports and entertainment. And then Rick Ross made a statement that changed the entire conversation. a statement involving a staggering $50 million promise that immediately sent social media into a frenzy and left fans wondering whether this was simply loyalty or the beginning of something much bigger. The real conflict began when online speculation surrounding Floyd Mayweather's finances reached a level that even longtime fans could no longer ignore. What started as scattered conversations in comment sections quickly evolved into a trending topic across social media platforms. Clips were being shared, old headlines were being reposted, and people were once again asking the question that seems to follow Floyd whenever financial rumors appear. Is Money Mayweather actually facing money problems? For many observers, the discussion wasn't driven by a single story. Instead, it was fueled by a combination of reports, lawsuits, business disputes, and internet commentary that had been building over time. Every new headline seemed to inspire people to revisit older stories. Soon, timelines were filled with screenshots, videos, and debates about Floyd's current financial position. The situation became even more complicated because Floyd's public image has always been built around wealth. For years, Mayweather proudly presented himself as the ultimate symbol of financial success. Luxury cars, expensive watches, private jets, massive real estate holdings, and extravagant purchases became part of his brand. Fans admired it. Critics questioned it. But everyone paid attention to it. That is why rumors about money affect Floyd differently than they affect most celebrities. If an actor or musician faces financial speculation, the story may come and go. But when someone who built an empire around the nickname money becomes a subject of financial rumors, the public reaction becomes much bigger. People immediately start comparing the image with the headlines. That exact pattern unfolded once again. As discussions intensified, countless social media users began sharing stories involving lawsuits, reported debts, business disputes, and legal filings. Some commentators treated those reports as proof that Floyd was experiencing serious financial difficulties. Others argued that wealthy individuals frequently deal with lawsuits and business disagreements without being anywhere close to broke. The internet, as usual, quickly divided into two camps. One group believed the rumors represented a much larger problem. The other believed the rumors were being exaggerated for clicks and attention. For several days, neither side appeared willing to back down. Then Rick Ross stepped directly into the conversation. During a live stream, Ross addressed messages from followers who were discussing Floyd's financial situation. Instead of giving a cautious answer, Ross immediately pushed back against the speculation. According to Ross, people were making assumptions without having access to the full picture. He argued that headlines and social media posts rarely tell the complete story, especially when discussing someone operating at Floyd Mayweather's level. Ross wasn't simply defending Floyd out of friendship. He seemed genuinely frustrated by what he viewed as a misunderstanding of how wealth works. In his opinion, many people confuse temporary business disputes with financial collapse. They see lawsuits and automatically assume someone is broke. They hear rumors and treat them as facts. Ross suggested that successful people often become targets of speculation because controversy generates attention. Initially, his comments attracted moderate attention, but then he said something that changed everything. Ross explained that if Floyd ever needed significant financial backing for the right opportunity, there were people around him who could make things happen immediately. He then referenced the possibility of putting up $50 million in support of a major event involving Mayweather. That number exploded across social media. $50 million. The moment clips of those comments began circulating, the conversation transformed overnight. Suddenly, people weren't just discussing whether Floyd was broke. They were discussing why Rick Ross felt comfortable publicly mentioning a figure that large. Supporters saw Ross's comments as powerful evidence that the rumors surrounding Floyd were overblown. Their argument was simple. If Ross is openly talking about helping facilitate a deal involving $50 million, then he clearly doesn't view Floyd as someone who lacks financial credibility. In fact, they argued that Ross's comments demonstrated the exact opposite. They suggested that Floyd's relationships, reputation, and earning potential remained strong enough to attract major opportunities whenever necessary. Critics, however, interpreted the situation differently. Some questioned why such a statement was necessary in the first place. Others wondered whether Ross was attempting to defend Floyd against criticism that had become impossible to ignore. A few even argued that the very existence of the discussion suggested there was more happening behind the scenes than people realized. As those debates intensified, another familiar figure entered the story, and that's where the first major twist arrived. Because whenever Floyd Mayweather becomes the center of online controversy, many fans instinctively expect one person to respond: 50 Cent. Their history is impossible to separate from any conversation involving either man. Once close friends, they eventually became public rivals. Years of interviews, social media exchanges, and public disagreements transformed their relationship into one of the most famous feuds in sports and entertainment. As a result, people were already waiting to see whether 50 would react. He didn't disappoint. Not long after Ross's defense of Floyd began spreading online, 50 Cent shared a message that immediately captured attention. The post appeared humorous on the surface, yet many people interpreted it as something much more than a joke. In the message, 50 suggested that Floyd should simply call him if he needed money, and implied that things had become messier than they needed to be. The wording was classic 50 Cent. Part sarcasm, part comedy, and just enough ambiguity to keep everyone talking. Within hours, screenshots of the post were everywhere. Fans immediately began debating its meaning. Was 50 genuinely mocking Floyd? Was he trolling for entertainment? Was he hinting that the rumors contained some truth? Or was he simply doing what he has always done whenever Floyd's name starts trending? No one could agree, and that uncertainty made the story even bigger. Now, the conversation had evolved into something much larger than finances. It had become a battle between competing narratives. Rick Ross was essentially telling the public not to believe the rumors. 50 Cent was posting content that many people interpreted as reinforcing them. Each side had millions of supporters. Each side had years of history backing their arguments. And social media loved every second of it. The rivalry element changed the tone completely. Instead of examining financial reports or business matters, audiences became focused on personalities. Who was more credible? Who knew Floyd better? Who was telling the truth? Who had hidden motives? Those questions generated endless debate. The first twist also exposed something interesting about public perception. Many people realized they weren't actually discussing verified financial information anymore. They were discussing trust. Supporters of Ross trusted his assessment because of his confidence and long-standing respect for Floyd. Supporters of 50 trusted his perspective because of his history with Floyd and his willingness to publicly challenge people. The facts almost became secondary. What mattered was which narrative people found more believable. As the debate intensified, clips from old interviews started resurfacing. Past comments about Floyd's spending habits, past business disagreements, past discussions involving investments, past stories about friendships that turned into rivalries. Every old clip seemed to add another layer to the growing controversy. The internet was effectively reopening years of history and re-examining it through the lens of today's rumors. Meanwhile, Floyd remained at the center of the storm. Every headline generated another reaction. Every reaction generated another theory. Every theory generated another viral post. And the more attention the story received, the more difficult it became to separate facts from speculation. Yet despite all the noise, one reality remained impossible to ignore. Rick Ross's $50 million statement had completely changed the direction of the conversation. Instead of discussing whether Floyd Mayweather was running out of money, people were now discussing the strength of his network, the loyalty of his allies, and the influence he still commands within sports and entertainment. But if fans thought that was the biggest surprise of the story, they were about to discover otherwise. Because the deeper people looked into Floyd's recent headlines, business relationships, and ongoing controversies, the more questions began to emerge. And some of those questions would lead to revelations that neither side was fully prepared to answer. Just when it seemed like the debate had reached its peak, the story took another unexpected turn. Rick Ross's $50 million promise had already shifted attention away from the original rumors and toward questions of loyalty, influence, and power. Social media was split. One side viewed Ross's comments as proof that Floyd Mayweather remained one of the most connected figures in sports. The other side believed the statement was simply a dramatic response to growing concerns that refused to disappear. But while everyone was focused on Ross and 50 Cent trading indirect shots through interviews, live streams, and social media posts, a deeper discussion started gaining momentum online. People began revisiting Floyd Mayweather's recent headlines. Not just one headline, all of them. Suddenly, internet users weren't looking at individual stories anymore. They were trying to connect them together. Reports involving lawsuits resurfaced. Stories about business disputes reappeared. Discussions about exhibition fights started trending again. Old interviews began circulating across social media platforms. The internet essentially became a giant investigation board, with fans attempting to connect us that they believed formed a larger picture. Whether those conclusions were accurate or not almost became secondary. The speculation itself was driving the conversation. One of the biggest developments involved renewed discussions surrounding several legal and business matters that have been reported over the past few years. Critics argued that the volume of stories appearing around Floyd's name was impossible to ignore. Supporters countered that high-profile athletes and celebrities routinely deal with lawsuits and disputes because of the enormous scale of their businesses. The two sides were looking at the exact same information and reaching completely different conclusions. And that divide only grew larger as more details entered the conversation. Then came another major talking point: the cancellation of a planned exhibition event. Almost immediately, social media exploded with theories. Some people claimed the cancellation was connected to broader business complications. Others insisted the reasons were far less dramatic. The truth was that many of the explanations being shared online were based on incomplete information. Yet, that didn't stop speculation from spreading. In fact, the uncertainty made the story even more attractive. Every unanswered question created room for another theory. Every theory created another viral post. Every viral post created another wave of reactions. Soon, the discussion was no longer focused solely on Floyd's finances. It had evolved into questions about the people around him, and that's where things became truly interesting. As fans dug deeper into old interviews and past business relationships, one name started appearing repeatedly: Al Heyman. For years, Heyman has been regarded as one of the most influential figures in boxing. Unlike many people operating at that level, he rarely seeks publicity. He generally avoids interviews and prefers to work behind the scenes. Because of that reputation, any discussion involving Heyman tends to attract attention. Online commentators began revisiting the professional relationship between Floyd Mayweather and Heyman, pointing to the enormous success they achieved together over the years. For supporters, the relationship represented one of the smartest partnerships in modern boxing history. For critics, it became another source of questions. As discussions intensified, old stories, rumors, and allegations that had circulated for years suddenly found a new audience. Many of these claims were impossible to independently verify. Others had already been debated countless times. Yet social media has a way of giving old controversies new life. The more people search for answers, the more complicated the story appeared to become. Then another surprising element entered the picture. Old comments from 50 Cent began resurfacing. Fans started sharing interviews where 50 discussed his former friendship with Floyd. In several clips, he spoke about business opportunities they once explored together and disagreements that eventually contributed to their falling out. Those interviews instantly gained new relevance. People began asking whether 50's recent trolling was purely entertainment or whether it reflected frustrations that had existed for years. The timing made the speculation unavoidable. Rick Ross was publicly defending Floyd. 50 Cent was publicly joking about Floyd. And old interviews were resurfacing that appeared to provide context for why their relationship deteriorated. Suddenly, social media users felt like they were watching multiple storylines collide at the same time. But the biggest reveal wasn't actually about lawsuits. It wasn't about canceled events. And it wasn't even about 50 Cent. The most shocking revelation was something much simpler. The conversation had stopped being about whether Floyd Mayweather was broke. Instead, it had become a debate about Floyd Mayweather's value. Those are two very different discussions. Even many critics who questioned Floyd's financial situation admitted something important. His name still generates headlines. His appearances still attract attention. His exhibitions still create interest. His brand still carries enormous influence. That realization became the turning point of the entire story. because Rick Ross's argument suddenly made more sense to many observers. Ross wasn't necessarily saying Floyd had no business problems. He wasn't claiming that every rumor was false. He wasn't denying that lawsuits or disputes existed. His core argument appeared to be something else entirely. He was arguing that Floyd Mayweather remains a valuable asset, and in the world of sports entertainment, value often creates opportunities. That perspective changed how many people viewed the situation. A person can face legal disputes and still be influential. A person can encounter business challenges and still generate enormous revenue. A person can be surrounded by controversy and still command attention whenever they enter a room. Supporters argue that Floyd fits that description perfectly. Even people criticizing him couldn't stop talking about him. That alone demonstrated the strength of his brand. Ironically, every rumor seemed to make him trend even more. Every controversy generated additional headlines. Every headline increased public interest. The cycle continued feeding itself. Meanwhile, Ross's $50 million statement kept gaining traction. What originally sounded like a bold promise was now being interpreted differently by some fans. Instead of focusing on the number itself, they focused on what the number represented: confidence, access, connections, influence. Whether Ross would actually put together a deal of that size almost became irrelevant. The statement had already achieved its purpose. It reminded people that Floyd Mayweather still operates in circles where massive opportunities remain possible. Yet despite all the arguments, debates, and speculation, one mystery remained unresolved. Why was 50 Cent suddenly so interested in the conversation again? Was he simply entertaining his followers the way he always does? Was he reigniting an old rivalry for laughs? Or did he believe there was more to the story than the public currently knew? No one seemed to have a definitive answer. And as new clips, old interviews, and fresh reactions continued flooding social media, the tension only increased. Because what began as a simple rumor about money had transformed into something far bigger: a public battle over legacy, influence, and credibility. And the reactions that followed would prove just how divided both the boxing world and the entertainment industry had become. As the story continued gaining momentum, the reactions became almost as fascinating as the controversy itself. What started as a discussion about Floyd Mayweather's finances had evolved into a much larger debate involving Rick Ross, 50 Cent, loyalty, influence, and the true meaning of success. Across social media, sports media, and entertainment circles, everyone seemed to have an opinion. The public reaction was immediate and intense. Within hours of Rick Ross's comments spreading online, clips from his live stream began appearing everywhere. Fans reposted them on X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Some people focused entirely on the eye-catching number Ross mentioned. Others paid closer attention to the message behind it. Supporters of Ross praised him for standing up for a friend when rumors were dominating the conversation. According to these fans, too many people have become comfortable declaring Floyd broke without access to any verified financial information. They argued that social media often turns speculation into accepted truth, especially when the person involved is a major celebrity. Many supporters pointed out that Floyd Mayweather has spent decades building one of the most successful careers in combat sports history. They believe it was unrealistic to assume that a few headlines or legal disputes automatically meant financial collapse. For them, Ross's defense was refreshing. Instead of joining the criticism, he challenged the narrative. Instead of repeating rumors, he questioned them. And instead of distancing himself from controversy, he publicly stood beside Floyd. That loyalty resonated with many people. However, not everyone saw it the same way. Critics argued that Ross's comments raised as many questions as they answered. Some wondered why such a strong defense was necessary in the first place. Others suggested that if the rumors were truly meaningless, they wouldn't require a public response at all. A number of social media users interpreted Ross's comments as evidence that the speculation had become impossible to ignore. Those competing viewpoints created the perfect environment for endless online debate. The discussion became even more heated when 50 Cent entered the picture. As expected, his followers immediately amplified every post, reaction, and comment connected to the story. Unlike Ross's direct defense of Floyd, 50's approach relied heavily on sarcasm and humor. That strategy generated a completely different type of response. Some fans viewed his comments as harmless entertainment. After all, 50 Cent has built much of his social media reputation around trolling celebrities, athletes, and rivals. Supporters argued that he was simply doing what he has always done. Others weren't convinced. They believed the jokes carried a deeper meaning. Because of 50's history with Floyd, every sarcastic comment was analyzed, dissected, and debated. People began revisiting years of interviews and public exchanges between the former friends. Old clips resurfaced. Past disagreements were re-examined. Previous business discussions suddenly became relevant again. The public wasn't just reacting to the current story anymore. They were reacting to more than a decade of history. Meanwhile, boxing fans found themselves divided as well. Many fighters, trainers, promoters, and longtime observers viewed the situation through a different lens. For them, the discussion wasn't necessarily about rumors. It was about Mayweather's position within the sport. Even critics who questioned aspects of Floyd's business dealings often acknowledge one undeniable reality. His impact on boxing remains enormous. Years after his professional dominance, his name still commands attention. His opinions still matter. His exhibitions still attract headlines. His influence still generates discussion. From an industry perspective, that kind of staying power is extremely rare. Several commentators pointed out that most retired athletes struggle to remain relevant long after leaving their prime. Mayweather has largely avoided that fate. Whether people love him or dislike him, they continue talking about him. And in the entertainment business, attention itself holds tremendous value. That point became central to many industry reactions. Some observers argued that people were focusing too heavily on rumors, while ignoring Floyd's broader influence. Others countered that influence doesn't automatically eliminate financial concerns. The disagreement highlighted an important distinction. One side was discussing wealth. The other side was discussing value. Those concepts are related, but they are not identical. A person can possess enormous value without publicly revealing every financial detail. Likewise, a person can face business challenges while remaining highly influential. That nuance was often missing from social media arguments. Industry insiders generally appeared more cautious than internet commentators. Many acknowledge that outsiders rarely have access to complete financial information about celebrities. They noted that headlines frequently provide only partial snapshots of much larger situations. As a result, some experts encourage fans to avoid drawing sweeping conclusions based solely on rumors or isolated reports. At the same time, media outlets recognize something else. The story itself had become irresistible. Think about the ingredients involved. You have Floyd Mayweather, one of the most famous boxers in history. You have Rick Ross, one of hip-hop's biggest personalities. You have 50 Cent, a master of viral social media moments. You have old friendships, rivalries, business disagreements, financial speculation, and public statements involving millions of dollars. From a media perspective, it was almost impossible not to cover. Every new reaction created another headline. Every headline created another discussion. Every discussion generated additional attention. The cycle kept growing. Even people who weren't particularly interested in boxing became curious. They wanted to know whether Ross was right. They wanted to know whether 50 was hinting at something. They wanted to know what Floyd would say next. That curiosity helped push the story far beyond its original audience. Perhaps the most interesting reaction came from fans who chose neither side. Instead of automatically believing Ross or agreeing with 50, they focused on the larger picture. These observers pointed out that public reception often swings between extremes. One day a celebrity is portrayed as untouchable. The next day the same celebrity is portrayed as struggling. Reality usually exists somewhere in the middle. They argue that the internet often rewards dramatic narratives over balanced analysis. As a result, complex situations become simplified into easy-to-share talking points. That observation seemed particularly relevant here, because despite thousands of comments and countless debates, very few people actually possess first-hand knowledge of Floyd's finances. Most participants were interpreting public information through their own assumptions. Yet, regardless of where people stood, everyone agreed on one thing. Rick Ross's comments had transformed the conversation. What started as another round of internet rumors had become one of the biggest celebrity discussions of the moment. And as reactions continued pouring in from fans, media personalities, boxing insiders, and entertainment figures, one question remained unanswered. How would Floyd Mayweather respond to all of this? Because the longer the debate continued, the more pressure built around the man at the center of it all. And when that response finally came, or if it came at all, it had the potential to change the entire narrative once again. Just when it seemed like the rumors surrounding Floyd Mayweather's finances couldn't get any bigger, the story took another dramatic turn. What started as online speculation about lawsuits, unpaid debts, and canceled events suddenly exploded into a much larger conversation after Rick Ross made a statement that had fans doing double takes across social media. During a live stream that quickly went viral, Ross didn't simply defend Floyd against claims that he was struggling financially. Instead, he went much further. Ross boldly suggested that if Mayweather ever needed access to serious money for a major opportunity, he could personally help make it happen. Then came the headline-making figure that immediately grabbed everyone's attention: $50 million. For many fans, that number changed the entire conversation. Up until that moment, the narrative had been centered around accusations and rumors. Critics were pointing to reports involving jewelry disputes, lawsuits, tax issues, and exhibition fight cancellations. Supporters argued that wealthy celebrities are constantly targeted by speculation, and that internet rumors often grow far beyond the facts. But Ross's comments shifted the focus. Instead of asking whether Floyd was broke, people suddenly started asking a different question. Why would Rick Ross publicly offer that kind of support unless he was absolutely confident about Floyd's position and earning power? Ross appeared determined to make one thing clear. In his view, Mayweather remains one of the most valuable names in boxing history. According to Ross, Floyd's ability to generate attention, sell events, and attract major business opportunities hasn't disappeared simply because negative headlines are circulating online. The message was straightforward. Ross wasn't judging Mayweather based on internet chatter. He was judging him based on decades of proven success. And that's where the story becomes even more interesting. Because while Ross was publicly standing behind Floyd, another familiar voice was helping keep the controversy alive. That voice belonged to 50 Cent. For years, the relationship between Floyd Mayweather and 50 Cent has fascinated fans. Once viewed as close friends and business partners, their friendship eventually transformed into one of entertainment's most public feuds. Every few months, a new comment, interview, or social media post seems to reopen old wounds. This latest situation was no different. As rumors surrounding Floyd continued spreading online, 50 Cent posted another message that many interpreted as classic trolling. His post joked about lending Floyd money and referenced federal attention, creating yet another viral moment that spread rapidly across Instagram, X blogs, and YouTube channels. Supporters laughed. Critics saw it as another attempt to embarrass Mayweather publicly. Others believed it was simply 50 Cent doing what he has always done best, turning headlines into entertainment. Regardless of intent, the timing couldn't have been more noticeable. While Ross was essentially saying, "Stop believing these rumors," 50 Cent appeared to be keeping those same rumors alive. The contrast created two completely different narratives. One side saw Ross as a loyal friend defending someone unfairly targeted by speculation. The other side viewed 50's comments as evidence that there might be more happening behind the scenes than fans realize. As social media users debated both positions, old interviews started resurfacing. Fans revisited conversations where 50 Cent discussed Floyd's spending habits. Others shared clips of Ross praising Mayweather's business instincts. Some dug up years-old arguments involving boxing promotions, investments, and failed partnerships. What began as a discussion about money suddenly evolved into a larger examination of loyalty, friendship, reputation, and public perception. The deeper people looked, the more complicated the story became. Then another twist emerged. While critics focused on reports of lawsuits and business disputes, supporters pointed towards something equally important: Floyd Mayweather's brand. Even his harshest critics rarely deny one fact: Mayweather remains one of the most recognizable athletes on the planet. Years after retiring undefeated, his name still dominates headlines. His exhibitions attract attention. His appearances generate media coverage. His opinions become news stories. And according to Ross, that level of influence still carries enormous financial value. That's why Ross argued that judging Floyd solely through court filings or headlines misses a much bigger picture. To Ross, Mayweather isn't simply an athlete. He's a global brand. A brand capable of generating millions through appearances, partnerships, exhibitions, and business opportunities. Whether fans agree with that assessment or not, Ross's confidence was impossible to ignore. But as debates intensified online, another question started gaining traction. If Floyd is truly doing as well as Ross claims, why do these rumors continue appearing year after year? And if the rumors are exaggerated, why do they consistently attract so much public attention whenever new legal or business reports surface? Those questions remain unanswered. What is clear, however, is that the battle over perception may now be bigger than the financial rumors themselves. Every new headline seems to create two competing realities. One reality portrays Floyd as a billionaire-level success story whose wealth and influence remain untouchable. The other paints a picture of a former champion facing increasingly complicated business challenges behind closed doors. Between those narratives stands Rick Ross, confident, unapologetic, and willing to put his reputation behind Floyd Mayweather in front of millions of viewers. Whether that confidence ultimately proves justified remains to be seen. But one thing is certain. Ross's stunning $50 million statement transformed an ordinary celebrity rumor cycle into one of the biggest discussions surrounding Floyd Mayweather in recent months. As fans continue choosing sides between Ross's unwavering support and 50 Cent's relentless trolling, the spotlight only grows brighter. Because if history has taught fans anything about Floyd Mayweather, Rick Ross, and 50 Cent, it's this. Whenever all three names become part of the same story, another unexpected chapter is usually right around the corner. And judging by the reaction spreading across social media, that next chapter may arrive much sooner than anyone expects. And now the question goes directly to you. After hearing Rick Ross publicly defend Floyd Mayweather, after seeing 50 Cent continue to joke about the situation, and after watching social media debate every headline, every lawsuit, and every rumor, what do you think is really going on behind the scenes? Do you believe Rick Ross is right when he says people are too quick to believe internet speculation? Is Floyd Mayweather still operating on a level most people simply can't understand, with business opportunities and connections that keep him far ahead of the rumors? Or do you think 50 Cent's comments are pointing towards something bigger? Could there be more truth behind the financial questions than Floyd supporters want to admit? One thing is undeniable. Whenever Floyd Mayweather's name starts trending, the entire internet seems to split into two camps. Some see an undefeated champion whose success continues long after retirement. Others see warning signs hidden beneath the luxury lifestyle and headline-making image. Now it's your turn to weigh in. Drop your thoughts in the comment below and let everyone know where you stand. Is Rick Ross showing loyalty to a longtime friend, or is he defending a narrative that's becoming harder to believe? And if Floyd really needed a massive opportunity tomorrow, do you think his name alone could still generate millions? I want to hear your opinion because this story is far from over, and every new development seems to create even more questions. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest updates on the biggest stories in boxing, hip-hop, and celebrity culture. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the biggest battles don't happen in the ring. They happen in the headlines. See you in the next video.